Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is a follow-up from last week, so you're going to notice the similarity in title. This is the inner challenge that wives are facing and its effect on marriage.
We got great feedback from last week, and we always love when there's messages. So if you are especially impacted by something that we say, please send a message, because we like knowing we're talking to real people. And several messages come to mind, but one in particular was just this husband. And he really shared that he'd never felt so, in a sense, like understood. And it gave him language to even explain to his partner what he was going through. And that's what we want. We want these principles and these topics that we cover to give you even more self-awareness, also give you an understanding of your partner, and be able to talk about it in a meaningful way. That's really what we want to bridge, is the communication and the understanding between you two. Mm-hmm. So we're excited to really dive in and focus on wives. And I relate to this point, and I was really thinking about really an undertone of what I hear from wives in our sessions. Of course, it can sound a little bit different, because not all people are the exact same, but this is definitely a strong theme. I definitely can relate to it. So even some of the shares I'll put throughout are things I've been noticing, my inner dialogue and what's going on. And we're going to make sure we not only cover what that inner challenge is, but also what to do about it so that you're not stuck with this. So let's dive right in. But one of the big things we notice is that wives struggle to meet a certain standard that we have set for ourselves, and some of it is even imposed on us from the outside world, right? And I think that we'll all consume probably a lot more social media content than we'd want to. I think a lot of us are working on having boundaries with our phones. It's something we all need to work on.
Funny enough, you just taught Sky the boundary expression. You made me think of that.
Yeah, I've been trying to teach her just in little ways how to talk to people about boundaries.
She puts her hand up and says, boundaries.
Right, if she doesn't want a hug or something like that from someone. So yes, boundaries are important. We're going to talk about that later on. But that word standard, even start to think for yourself, like, what standards do you have for yourself? And you've probably heard us talk about in other episodes that it's important to have standards. In fact, we think some people need to raise their standards. However, if you're listening to this episode and you follow our content, you already probably have pretty high standards for yourself, because you have to have, to some degree, a growth mindset and wanting to get better, right? You seek out personal development and becoming the best version of yourself. So I would guess that you already have decently pretty high standards of yourself, maybe even some of you extremely high standards for yourself. And I fall into that category of, I actually have to check myself and actually have grace for myself and not have this like imperfect standard. And so what I notice is that a lot of us wives, it's like we feel like we could always be more, do more, grow more, be better as a parent, as a partner, as a person, a friend, a family member. And I can catch myself. I even had this dialogue this morning where I was thinking about, oh my gosh, I need to check in on this friend and that friend. And I hope that they're feeling I'm showing up for them enough. And it's like I can get into these moments of feeling like I'm not being enough for everyone. And there's different reasons of like where that stems from. And I know some of where that is. But what this can lead to is a degree of self-sacrifice. Like, think for yourself, even as I say that. Do you put yourself last? Do you put your kids, which of course they are depending on us, so that it's important to be serving them and thinking about them. They're our responsibility and we love and care about them, but we put our kids above us, we put our partner, we put our friends, our family members, and of course we want to care. Like, that is, for a lot of us, our nature is to want to be there for people and to do the best we can, but then we can leave nothing left over for ourselves. And we've all heard the cliche that you can't pour from an empty cup, yet how many of us are trying to do that on a daily basis?
Mm-hmm. This does link to the point we've made a few times. I believe it was last episode for the husbands and also a few prior. We have talked about this decision-making process and that every decision really is a sacrifice of one thing or to pursue one path over another path. So everything is a sacrifice. And I just want to insert here that when the sacrifice is a conscious choice in regards to you choosing to follow your path, your vision, your set of values, then you can make the choice of what doesn't serve you and sacrifice those. Now, you can also do that on a temporary basis to try to progress and move forward with the vision or the set of values that you're currently holding at the highest level. And I think the biggest problem, and I'm not a wife, obviously, but when it comes to this sacrifice, it's when you don't choose it. So it's when a sacrifice feels imposed on you, even though, as you're saying here now, this overwhelm, this standard is still self-imposed. But if you're not feeling like you're choosing the sacrifice, that's when it starts to feel like suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remembered I didn't finish my thought earlier about social media and those boundaries, that I know if I open my phone and I'm like, okay, let me go onto our social media, which we use for our business. So we want to connect with people. We want to respond to messages. We want to put up a post. But if I spend a couple minutes scrolling, within 2 minutes, I can be told I need to do more to create my house to be non-toxic. I need to do this better interaction with my daughter. Oh, okay, I could have been better there. Whoa, okay, I could be doing more for my spouse. Oh, don't forget about your friend who might be depressed. Like in 2 minutes, I can be told.
Your business should be more scalable. Don't forget those ones.
Exactly. Yeah, you should be better in your business. And by the way, you should be more fit. Hello, why did you eat that instead of this? So in 2 minutes, I can be like bombarded with these messages, which a lot of them are positive. I mean, we're content creators. We're not saying it's all bad. However, it can, even though it's positive or it is focusing on being better, it can plant in our mind like it's never enough. And that's where we're going to get to this later of like the what to do. But if we now have this standard, and for us, it's like this impossible and do more, be better, and then we sacrifice ourselves, what is that doing? That is leading us at some point to burnout, maybe even recurring burnout. We can be resentful to ourselves, to others, right? And you talked about that a little bit with the sacrifice, but we especially can resent is if we don't feel as though we're choosing it. But by the end of this episode, I want you to see, in a sense, you do have a choice. And I'm going to give you some ways to be focusing on this as a choice. But I know I've been catching myself, and over the years of becoming a mother, I especially was deprioritizing my health. I would be, of course, focusing on our daughter. Our marriage has always been a top priority. For some of you, that needs to be bumped up on the priority list. Our home, we both love a clean home, and being a great friend and family member. And I was putting my health last. And health for me has always been a top priority. I grew up being very self-conscious. Like you guys, it's a whole story, but I mean, to the point of truly, in a sense, like hating my body. I had to really work on self-love, and I'm at a place where I do love myself and I love my body. And so exercise has been a way of me building that strong relationship with myself, and movement and going to the gym and sometimes being in nature. And that just always made me happier. It helped me process emotion, and it kept my relationship to myself strong. But in this season, I was really putting that last and last and last. And I remember Sky's first couple years of life, I was averaging like 2 workouts a month. Whereas Aaron and I met in the gym, health has been such a priority. And so think about for yourself, like, what are you putting last? Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's your hobbies that you enjoy. Maybe it's getting time to read and you actually love reading. Or maybe it's being able to focus on a passion project. But just think for yourself, as I'm sharing these examples, what you're putting on the back burner and where that could be leading to some resentment. And this also, and we're going to get to how it affects the marriage in a moment, but I've noticed over the last couple of months where I'm struggling to let myself relax. I have this internal dialogue of no, there's no way you could relax right now. You have so many other things you could be doing. And I would kind of feel guilty for relaxing, not because of you or anyone else putting that on me, but me, like that believing that rest, relaxation, just being is a good thing, not a bad thing. There's always more to do. And I think I even heard you say this to a few people over the last few days, Erin, is like, truly, the to-do list never gets done. Whether that's in your work or your personal life, you don't really get to a place where you're like, wow, there's no more. There's always more you could do. And so we can stay in this hamster wheel of more, never relax, never prioritize yourself and those things that are most important to you. So let's get into the ways, though, that it can affect the marriage, because the internal challenges that we're dealing with, of course, affect the marriage. That's what we talked about with the husbands last week. So I actually broke these down into a few of different ways that we observe it affects the marriage. So the first way is when we're struggling to be okay with what is, we can then be sharing with our partner, whether it's texting them videos from online or bringing it up at dinner, or like I know parenting is a topic that we're all very passionate for those of us who do have kiddos. And so it's like we can quickly intervene on something we see our partner doing with the kids and think, no, that's not what they say to do online. That could be traumatizing them, and don't talk to them this way. And so we can get to a place where it's imbalanced, that the feedback becomes imbalanced. And again, I'm not saying don't consume content. I also love learning from what I read and see online. But is there a degree to which it becomes too much and creates this environment between you and your partner where it's never good enough? You're not being a good enough partner. You're not being a good enough parent. You're not being good enough in the home. And that it affects your guys' ability to just be in a state of gratitude for what is in an environment of appreciation. And I know that for some partners, it can even get to this degree where it's like, I feel like I only get texts about content of where I'm not doing good enough. Mm. And that's going to lead to a place of feeling as though who I am, is that enough for you? So again, it's a balance. It's not that you shouldn't consume any content or send any ideas to your partner, but it can start to feel as though it's too much.
It really makes me think of this term called emotional crossover. We may have referenced this on the last episode as well, but there's definitely an impact, as when I say this, you're going to be like, well, obviously, the emotional state that a partner is in does impact the other partner. Mm-hmm. And in different ways, I think more so even for women perceiving men being in a more disempowered, discouraged, discontent state, or even just removed. You guys, and I'm only married to one person, so I can only really give my one experience, but I know this to be true because of all the sessions that we do, that you guys pick up on that more than we do, or just from wanting to essentially support, will ask more about it. Are you okay? Like, it seems like you're down. What's wrong with you? What's wrong?
Talk to me.
And so obviously there's the emotional state by itself, but then as we know, your combination of the thoughts and then the emotions that it elicits is what drives behavior, and even more so what drives default reactions, whether it's quick responses or whether it's in the conflict cycle that perpetuates a conversation and escalates it into a conflict. Then we just know that your internal state has an impact on your partner. It's called emotional crossover. So that really, I think, is, as I'm hearing you say all this, one of the underlying impacts. And from this being the internal conflict for the wives, I think it's more in the reactive kind of responses or behavior that then us husbands are getting.
Yeah.
Not that we're interpreting the internal state as such. It's really then, how is that driving your automatic responses to your partner being in this whether you want to call it stressed,
fight or flight even.
Almost impossible standard, maybe fight or flight, self-sacrifice, anxious, on edge, not relaxed attitude, then you can already feel how that's going to trigger a number of automatic responses. I think is what can get husbands frustrated.
As you shared that, I went to a dinner with some girlfriends before an event a few weeks ago, and not all of us were mothers, but we were all just sharing different things. And one friend in particular was talking about how she has some guilt about how she handled certain things with her daughter, and that she now realizes, I could have done this better and done that better. And one of the other moms was like, you know what? Kids are resilient. And you don't need to give them every interaction to be perfect. And they actually learn from you just acknowledging the mistakes that you make. And I just saw the friend soften and relax and say, you know what? We aren't going to be perfect. And that it's okay to be human. Of course, within reason, we need to still keep a good standard for ourselves. But I just want all of you listening to acknowledge yourselves for all that you do, who you are, where you are growing and being better, and knowing that there is no destination of perfect. We say that to couples often too, when they're talking about their marriage specifically. There can be this hypervigilance. No, we need to get better at this. And no, we still have to get better at how we handle this situation. And we say, okay, yes, let's keep course correcting. Let's keep working on these. And just so you know, there's no perfect destination. There's no point where you arrive and suddenly you always get it right with each other and you never have conflict and you never miss a beat in your communication. There's no perfect destination. Being a human is being imperfect and realizing that, okay, yeah, I could handle this part a little bit better, but I can't expect myself to get it right 100% of time. And I need to have some grace for myself and for my partner and for my kids and everyone around me.
Yeah, and I know we're going to move into what to do, but let me round out what I see as the impact on the spouses, on the husbands. I would say it does seem like in those states, then the wives are not as available for intimate moments. If we initiate a deposit, certainly one for physical intimacy, it can be rejected. You can feel tired. I don't have anything left. So that's definitely an impact. And then with a caveat here, husbands, so long as you are taking on everything we said from the last episode, right? That balance between being the warrior sort of outside and being the partner you need inside the home. But then also it becomes a part of you adopting your own responsibility, men, and being in integrity with what you've promised or what you said you'll do. Okay, so that's the caveat. Two, the last part of this impact I see is the overwhelm that the wives can be experiencing, the mental load, the emotional toll, the weight of the responsibilities that you have taken on, then get passed off as, well, things are unfairly distributed between the two of us. But men are over here like, well, wait a second, don't put this on me. You're the one that said yes to things that are way too many things. And I didn't agree to this stuff, so you can't now pass that on to me. Just because you're overwhelmed and you said yes to some things, or a lot of things, doesn't mean that our roles and responsibilities are necessarily mismatched, because look, I haven't said yes to those things.
And of course, that's with, that can be very nuanced, because you did say yes, for example, to having a home together. Those aren't things where it's like, I didn't.
Like I said, I mean, the context is, that's why that caveat was important. Within the home, within your roles and responsibilities as partners for all that you do, me as a husband, my role is to give a commitment yes to things and then follow through and be in integrity to those things.
Yes.
Now, look, we're not all operating at 100%. As we said a number of episodes ago, men, you might even be at 40, 50%. So you need to get that integrity much closer to 100. Now we're in this, and you could see the effect though, right? It's even if my integrity is at 40, 50%, when I'm feeling like you're telling me things are imbalanced, I'm going to be feeling this similar dynamic of, well, just because you've said yes to all these things doesn't mean it needs to be passed off on me. So where's the right line?
Yeah.
Men, before you share this observation, your integrity goes up to 100%. Clean that up. Now we're in a place where it's a conversation where, hey, I'm in integrity with all the things I said yes that I can follow through on. My follow through is great, and I understand you're overwhelmed. And where we're at, though, is I think you've taken on too many things. I'm not the one necessarily saying yes to the amount of, I don't know, social gatherings, birthday parties, amount you feel you have to connect and message with friends, other things with your family, like
all the extras.
add it all up, all the extras. So this, again, let me just put in here for the husbands. This is where, from the last episode, it does get difficult, because here I am trying to focus on my own particular things to help and support the family and outside world. And then it becomes more difficult to support and be on the partner role side, especially when it feels like a lot of your overwhelm is now expected for me to pick up.
Yeah. And so, of course, put that within context of your relationship. It's important because the mental load is such a big topic online right now, especially because, dynamics have been changing over the decades, where now I'd say the majority of couples that we talk to, both are working. And I say this to couples often. It's like, you guys have so much on your plates. Think about everything you're responsible for. Whereas decades before, we either had more support from family around us, or more places to outsource, or both of us weren't working. And so in modern day life, there's a lot of weight on both partners. And so it's important that you two discuss the load that's on you guys and the mental load, and making sure that there is fairness in a sense. It might not always be balanced 50-50 because there's many nuances to your lives, but making sure that it feels fair, that you are a team, that you're carrying the load within the life that you guys are creating. But to Erin's point, you want to make sure that both of you are aligned with what you say yes to. And maybe you're saying yes to too many things. Maybe you're trying to be the perfect friend to all these different friends, the perfect family members to all these extended family members. Like, maybe it's too much of what you're saying yes to. So this is a good transition actually to get to more of the clear what to do. And the first one is going to seem so simple, yet I would bet you're not practicing it. And it is focusing on gratitude for what you are and have now. Gratitude is something, it's free, it's an area of focus, but so many of us are not focusing on it. We are focused on, again, more stress. Oh, I got to be better here. Whereas gratitude is taking a moment when you wake up and throughout the day to say, you know what? Let me take an inventory of how great my life is now. Maybe not everything is perfect, because we all know we've got things going on and things that could be better. But what is great now? Where am I fortunate? Where am I thankful? Where am I blessed? So focusing on that gratitude, and it'd be really important to focus on this within your partnership, because there's going to be things we can all get better at. Erin and I are far from perfect people. You're not going to meet a perfect person. But do you look at your partner and think of all the things they have to get better at? Or do you look at them and say, I see the greatness in them. I see where they've grown. I see all that they do. So that's an internal practice of that gratitude. Then the second thing of what to do that we're inviting you into is to actually express more of these acknowledgments out loud. It goes so far with everyone in your life, but you can even just start with your partner and your kiddos if you have them, verbally saying out loud what you see, what you appreciate, what you love, what you admire. I mean, think about even the last time that you got an unexpected acknowledgement from someone. And you know that it puts a pep in your step. Like, you feel like, oh, wow, someone just saw me. And I didn't even know I needed that acknowledgement, but it feels so good, because that's one of the core needs that we have, is to feel seen. And then second to that, feeling appreciated. And especially for how much you both do, it feels good to feel appreciated, that it's not just taken for granted. So the second thing we're inviting you into is more verbal acknowledgement. Say out loud those things you appreciate and love about each other and the simple deposits that you can make. If you're new here, we talk about these deposits versus withdrawals from the love account. And we know that the busier you get, it's very easy to say more of the little feedback, little criticisms, little, oh, this could be better. Oh, why are you putting that there? Those little things become withdrawals. And then when we're busy and we're focused on doing and doing and doing, we forget the deposits. So don't forget about each other's love account. And by the way, before I forget, and we go on to the last few what to do, sign up for the next 30-day Prioritizing Us Couples Challenge. It's starting within days of this episode going up. So you want to go to the webpage right now and get signed up. It's mycoupleschallenge.com. That'll also be linked in the show notes. But it's an incredible way, no matter how busy you are, to consistently focus on connecting more, improving your communication, filling your love accounts with very practical, like these are very realistic, again, no matter how busy you are, but they get you kind of shaking things up a little bit, doing things different, getting out of a routine or a rut that you might be in. So truly go sign up for that. You'll see why over 32,000 couples have loved it. And over 50% pretty consistently of the registrations come from men because we want it to be relatable to both partners. So go to mycoupleschallenge.com for that.
As you move into the last couple points of what to do to, I would say, relieve yourself of this internal conflict or challenge, I want to give an analogy, and it's spring cleaning. And I don't see as many people do this anymore, but it used to be, in my mind, much more popular. Spring is here, not right now, but I mean, when spring comes, you go into the closet, you clean it out, you make room for what's new or find stuff you weren't wearing so you can get use out of it. It doesn't work for you to continue to cram things into the same closet without doing this cleaning. And I really do think that we all have to take the opportunity to spring clean all of the things we said yes to, our responsibilities, and to do that spring cleaning for ourselves emotionally and through the activity that we put ourselves through. So I think a part of being able to reduce this conflict is to look at your current life, especially as a couple, and in this case, obviously for women too, but you have to spring clean and understand, though I've said yes to a certain amount of things, what do I need to reprioritize and refocus on for this next season, and make some choices on things to let go of. Whether it's certain participation in kids' school, like PTA type stuff, or the amount of sports that your kids are going to.
The number of gatherings you say yes to and RSVP to.
Maybe as a business owner, you always say yes to like the next mastermind, the next gathering, and continuing to try to grow your business or more networking, when maybe it's not that season right now. So whatever it is, just really look at your life. You can't keep on putting more in. Part of being able to free yourself up is you have to, again, choose your sacrifice. And it can be for a certain period of time, but that's the only way you can feel relief and reduce this pressure and stress sometimes.
So that, what you just said, will allow women to care more for yourselves and not just getting downtime, like, oh yeah, at night I stay up late and I watch a show, right? Like after the kids are in bed, everything's cleaned up, I stay up and watch a show. Believe me, I love a good show. I love movies. We both do. But that's not necessarily nourishing you. That's not necessarily filling your cup and making you feel more full to give to yourself. So what actually is going to do that for you? And a quick example was the last few days over the weekend. What I really wanted to do, even though I could have prioritized so many other things, you guys, like there's many other things that we could focus on, even exciting things for our business. Like we've been approached to write a new book, for example, and we could be just fully focused on that. But what I wanted to do more than anything was to focus on decorating our new house a little bit. So I painted a few walls and we got some new decorations. And that to me was so nourishing because a home represents so much to me. And that could be a whole other side story. But that actually was nourishing to me. I felt so fulfilled and joyful from getting to do that. And again, I could have said, no. Later on, months from now, I've got all these other projects to be working on.
And I don't want this to get misconstrued because I was leery about this one. It's only because it was nourishing and it was in the context for you of the value hierarchy of the home.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone on here thinking like, oh, yeah, let me now
decorate my whole house.
Yeah, exactly. Like try to squeeze in more time for household decor and responsibilities. Like it's really not about more activities. Right. It just so happened that doing things for the home was a very nourishing, rejuvenating activity for you.
Yes.
So that's not anybody thinking like, oh my gosh, if it feels like it's cramming more into that closet, then don't do the thing for the home.
Well said. Okay, so the next one is about implementing boundaries and adjusting the expectations that either you have for yourself or that even people have of you. So boundaries are not necessarily something that should be restrictive. I know that when people hear that word, it feels as though they're putting people like, at arm's length, and you tell people like, no, I'm not available for that. Boundaries don't have to be harsh, and they also don't have to be something that disconnects you from the people in your life. Boundaries are a way of you preserving yourself and your priorities. And so just even examples, again, a place I've put pressure on myself a lot of times is with friendships. And I feel like, okay, I could be more. I could be making sure that person is okay. Check in on them. Oh, I could be doing this for them. And what I've been working with myself in this internal dialogue is, you know what, Jocelyn, like you can check in, you can do your best, but do only what you have available. Because I would put them even above myself. And so sometimes you do need to express to people of what you have available and what you don't have available. So think about, inventory your life and your relationships. And are there places that you either need to kind of renegotiate the expectations, whether that's in a professional context or you actually do need to say, you know what, I don't need to be on the board of the HOA this year or in the PTA or something like that. Do I need to actually change the agreements and the expectations of all these different roles that I have? So focus on your boundaries, adjust the expectations you have for yourself. And if you notice stress or strain in a certain area, truly ask yourself if it has to be this way. Because sometimes we do think that, like it lives for us like, no, I couldn't let people down and adjust this role. Who says? Who says you're in charge of your life? And that's really a theme that I would hope you both are taking away from both episodes is that, yes, we all have responsibilities, but you're in charge of your lives. And I think so many of us can still be caught up in this whole keeping up with the Joneses kind of mentality of like, no, like there's always more. And I feel that as life gets busier and in a sense more complex, it's like we can just be in this hamster wheel of doing things, but who says so? Is that actually your dream? Is that actually your vision? And with vision, it's important to not only focus on how things look, the outward achievements and the physical, tangible representation of what's important to you, but what should be at the center of that is how you want to feel. And if you two aren't feeling peace, satisfaction, fulfillment in your lives because of the things we've covered in both these episodes for husbands and wives, you get to make changes. And so often people forget that. Again, we all have responsibilities. We all have certain things that we have to be cognizant of. But I just want you to remember that you get to say, you get to make changes together. So we hope that these two episodes really bridge a conversation between you two to really focus on these points and say, what is actually more important to us right now? And are we both overwhelmed in our own ways and outsourcing or like kind of giving out our energy, our focus, and putting what's most important last, which is yourselves as individuals, of course, your family, your marriage, like those really are the most important things. And yes, there are many other things that we all care about, but those should only be a focus when those first three things I said are thriving. And if they aren't thriving, then we need to make some changes. And so we hope that these episodes really gave you some conversation starters, things to talk about to make these shifts, make these changes. And again, a very practical way to do this and not have it feel like you have to have this overwhelming conversation in one day is our 30-day couples challenge, because we not only give you these really sweet and simple gestures to fill each other's love account, but we give you conversation starters that are very approachable but meaningful. And so you kind of get these bite-sized way to have these conversations. And over the month, rather than it feeling like a sprint, it's like, you know what? Wow, look at what we talked about. Look at how great our relationship and our lives feel from just these little things we focused on every day. So I don't want to spoil the prompts and the details. That's why you just have to do the 30-day Prioritizing Us Couples Challenge. You'll see why so many couples love it. So go to mycoupleschallenge.com and get signed up. But we truly hope you enjoyed these 2 episodes and that they're just giving you some clarity and some conversation. Please do send us a note. And if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can hear past and future episodes. But we truly love you guys, and we will talk to you on the next episode.